A lion on Twitter. Is the American dream still relevant?
Is it?
Is it?
Sorry, I'm refilling my coffee right now.
I guess it depends on what you mean by relevant. And what do you mean by the American dream? And it depends on what the definition of is.
Words are weird, aren't
Yeah.
they?
I mean, I think dreams are always going to be relevant, like, meaning we've got to have something to shoot for. I mean, the American dream as of 1955, is it still relevant for today in 2019? No, probably not.
Well,
under those terms.
I think for some people it might be. I mean, you and I both know people who, back in the corporate world, very few of them, who are actually content with the suburban house in northern Kentucky.
Absolutely.
And the 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, the dog, the cat, the pickup truck, etc. And that was fun. And they were actually like, they like that. I want to play cornhole in my backyard on the weekends and barbecue. And that was like great for them. But then there were other people who were like, oh, that's great for them. It will also be great for me.
Yeah. Templating. That's something that we like to do. We like to take something that works somewhere and then apply it broadly, because that helps us categorize the world and gives us a sense or a set of metrics that we can then use universally. And we're like, okay, we're done. We've universally applied this to everybody. So if you don't live up to that, that's your problem, not our problem. And that helps us measure things, but we're not necessarily measuring anything useful. The fact that we cannot achieve somebody else's version of a dream. And I do think that American dream thing, it was like it's a branded issue. It's something that was heavily supported by nationalism, but also the fact that we were sending money all over the world at that point to help a bunch of countries recover from that war and then to keep influence during the Cold War. So it makes sense that that sense of consumerism would spread as well. When I hear people talk about the American dream overseas, that's usually what it means. It means the purchasing of things to show your value. And that's
a type of... I have an essay on our website. Put a link to this in the show notes, Sean. It's called "Consumerism is the Original Virtue Signaling."
Yeah.
But it was value signaling in a way,
and showing what your status is, and having the right things, having the exercise bike in your cathedral of a home, apparently.
Right.
You know, it's having certain things, and that being the most important thing, because it shows other people your value. It shows them that they should want to have kids with you, that they should want to marry you, but also it shows them where you fall in the power system, in the hierarchy. There's a lot of things that exist throughout human society that we then reduce down to this one metric. And we use this one metric to try to symbolize all of those things. And that reverberates downward. The lower you happen to feel you are on that hierarchy, the more you feel the need to fluff yourself up. And if somebody tells you, well, you will look more powerful and sexy and desirable in tons of ways. You'll look more successful and intelligent and everything if you own X, Y, and Z, then
that's a problem.
It makes sense that you might want to do that, especially if you're not in any position necessarily to question it, because these are people who are powerful or further up the hierarchy, or seem to be at least, than you. And that system, that propagating system, is something that I think has spread as well, because there's a lot of other countries. Every country has different cultural background and histories and everything. There's a lot of variables that go into this, and it changes everywhere that it goes. But that unifying metric is something that's spread in very recent history, but it spread so completely because we became such an economic and branding superpower that in a lot of cases where it wasn't intermingled with the local culture and other value systems, it just overwhelmed it and dominated it in so many different ways. And part of that's globalization, the fact that it made a lot more sense in a lot of economic ways, and actually the political intermingling as well that's happening internationally today too, that feeds it and supports it, because it's a really wonderful way for certain entities to grow more powerful if they can convince more people around the world to believe this same thing. But the reality is that it's not the only way to determine those things, to look at each other, to value ourselves. But it is something that is incredibly relevant because it's been so well fed by so many different entities. It's very convenient for a lot of different systems to keep that sense of self in somebody else's hands.
And not only do we propagate, we propagate consumerism through this old American dream. I guess we could call it the old American dream.
I mean, what was the American dream? Is that what it is? It's just consumerism.
So that's what we're talking about here. So I think that the old American dream is the value signaling of a particular template. It is a specific template. I think the new American dream, earlier in the episode, we defined all of these things, the enjoyment, walking away, self-reliance, discomfort, discipline, growth, freedom, being debt-free, having your health, and being curious. That is the sort of new American dream, but that's not a template so much as it is a grocery list of ingredients that you then add your own ingredients to it, and I think these are like sort of key or core ingredients in that recipe if you want to live a more meaningful life. But propagating the consumerism of the old American dream also propagated a lot of misery.
I guess it just makes me think that like it was never relevant. It was like something we were sold, and
it was very useful. And I think it was relevant in practice, but that doesn't mean not relevant necessarily in terms of being valuable to people. I think in some cases it did. There's a lot of super valuable things about, if we want to get granular about it, capitalism as it is practiced. There's a lot of valuable things and a lot of things that it's allowed us to do in terms of advances in medicine, in terms of human rights. There's a lot of equalizing that it's done. There's also extremes. And a lot of those extremes, unfortunately, are things that have taken that concept that we were using as a bit of a branding mechanism in a form of soft power in the United States. There's a lot of those things that have spiraled out of control in a way because of incentives that at the time weren't super meaningful, but which have become more important over the years. And those incentives have moved us into perhaps some harmful directions.
So maybe like the American dream is still relevant, but you have to know what your dream is. It's like when I talk about living in Los Angeles, people are like, how's LA? I'm like, it's freaking awesome. Like it has everything that I want. Like anything I can imagine, Los Angeles has. The hard part is knowing what you want. And like that is where like the true dream is like knowing what you want and being able to go get it instead of being overwhelmed by everyone else's idea of what the dream is.
Maybe call it the individual dream or the human dream then.
Yeah.
It is disentangled from the American dream, which was kind of a branding mechanism more than anything else.